Israel has faced the worst terror attack in its history. Many are in fact comparing it with the Holocaust and saying that single-day casualties in Holocaust were not as much as the casualties that were faced on Saturday by Israel. As of now, more than 1,000 people in Israel, many of them innocents, including children, babies, and elderly women, have been killed. On the other front, in Gaza as well, there are casualties of the Hamas terrorists that are increasing by the day as the airstrikes continue. To know much more about that, what the ground realities are, and what the Israel government is now planning to do, we have with us Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Naor Gilon. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. At such a crucial moment, I want to begin by asking you, where were you at that particular time when you heard this, and what was your first reaction?
I was at home. It was relatively early in the morning because it was a holiday. It was Saturday and a holiday, not by coincidence, of course, they chose it. And in the beginning, the first reports were about rocket attacks, which we are used to periodically. But then, very short after, they started speaking of infiltrations, and I understood that it's a bigger event. It's a much bigger event. My wife now is visiting Israel, and my 4 children and 5 grandchildren, they are all there, and of course, this goes into your mind immediately.
It does, but now the reports are shocking. I mean, where does one even begin? The kind of catastrophe, the massacre that has happened in southern Israel, and I remember this because I visited all these areas. I mean, thanks to the Israel government and the IDF that they took me there in November last year, and I visited all these places right at the bank of the border, and in fact I visited even those kibbutz where the innocents have been killed. And of course the Kerem Shalom border crossing where from many of these entered as well. What can you tell, what is the ground situation right now in southern Israel and otherwise overall?
So yeah, what they did early in the morning, they did a dual attack, unprovoked of course, and they shot rockets and missiles, and in parallel they were able to cross the border and infiltrate more than 30 civilian centers, community centers in Israel, different kinds, kibbutz, moshav, cities, and started, it was a ISIS kind of operation, really, merciless, women, children, elderly, they killed whole families, they murdered. I don't want to go into all the atrocities and the war crimes there, but it really, the pictures of ISIS decapitating. So I'll stop here because the viewers don't have to hear these graphic things, but it was something we never knew in the past. We had things, but nothing that is ISIS-like. We understand that Hamas adopted over the years, really, the approach of ISIS. And that was the situation. We have to admit that there was a collapse of the protection there, and then citizens found themselves alone against the terrorists, and that happened for about 12 hours. That until forces started coming, it took time. It took us time to regain. Now, already 18 hours later, I think we already regained control of all the 30 centers of population. We still have some people in the ground, on the ground, some terrorists that are hiding. So they were either in buildings, because towns you can find places to hide, or in the woods around or something. But we already killed quite a few since there. I think that there are probably very few left. Israel, for the last 2 days, is already attacking from the air in Gaza. We are building ground forces around Gaza, so reserves, very serious number of forces, because at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we are depriving Hamas, this terror organization, and its terrorists from the ability to execute such attacks on Israel in the future. This is going to be the aim. In parallel, we have also in the north Hezbollah. Since it was a surprise, we don't really know how much Iran was behind it. But we do know for the time being that Iran for a long time was equipping, giving weapons and technologies and know-how to Hamas, and were training their people. And there were a series of meetings of heads of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranians around us in the last open sources, so known meetings. So Iran is surely somewhere there, but Hezbollah is totally an arm of Iran. So unlike Hamas that are Sunnis and anything, Hezbollah is Shiite, it's part of Iran in their point of view and how they see themselves. And they are starting to heat the border in order to create a two-front, so far not fully. We hope it will not go into full mode. If you saw the Americans, in order to send the message, sent a fleet carrier and some ships closer to the Eastern Mediterranean, sending the message. And yesterday, President Biden, in a very brilliant speech, also said very clearly, don't open here a front to Hezbollah and to Iran, namely, I think. And this is the situation, more or less. Now we'll see how now in Gaza things go on.
Ambassador Gilon, before we get into Gaza, before we actually discuss about Iran as well, and that's important, I want to take you back to Saturday morning. You know, one visual that really doesn't go away from my mind since Saturday morning is the peace party that was happening right near the border. And in this open field, you know, people are enjoying and, you know, having a best of times early in the morning. And, you know, they don't look at the sky. They're partying and they're enjoying amongst friends. And these are youngsters I'm talking about. And somebody pans the camera towards the sky. And while we see these people partying and enjoying and having a drink, suddenly there are these paragliders coming from the other side and nobody realizes that within minutes there will be a massacre here. What was the crime of those 260 people that were killed?
It's, you know, there were 3,000 people more or less in the party. It's very customary to do that. It's overnight and they drink and they sing and they listen to music. It's a cultural thing. We have it all around Israel. Youngsters love it. Yeah, their only crime is to be in the wrong place and a very comfortable target for Hamas. They sent with the pickups, with like you see from Daesh, from ISIS from that time, pickups with people with the machine guns on them, just, you know, shooting. We didn't speak of the fact that they are assumed. So we have around, now the figures are more than 5,000 rockets shot to Israel. We have about 1,200 casualties, the vast majority, more than 1,000 are civilians, 260 at least from there, many children and whole families that were slaughtered in their homes. And we have the kidnapped, we have abducted. They took also from, I know at least, from a 9-month-old baby, the youngest, to a lady which is close to her 90s. They took people, civilians, into Gaza, also from the party. So those who didn't die, some of those who didn't die were abducted. Some of the young women we saw taken there were from the party, young women and also men. So we have another element that we have to take into account, because you remember that in past encounters with Hamas, they were using their own population as human shields, storing and shooting from hospitals, mosques, schools, wherever there are people, hoping that Israel will retaliate automatically, kill, God forbid, children, and then there will be pressure on Israel to stop. That was the main idea. So, there's the known picture that you see that was done, that Israel is standing, the military is standing in front of the children to protect them, and Hamas on the other side is standing behind the children to be protected by them. You know, this thing. And now they have Israeli, and not only Israeli, we didn't speak of the fact that there are also many, many foreigners. They are in the casualties and in the kidnapped. Many also from South Asia, from Philippines, Thailand, quite a lot, Nepal, both groups. And also European citizenship, quite a few American citizenship. So it's very complicated. And they already threatened to execute them ISIS style. You know, and it might happen. When Israel goes in ground, you might see very, as a psychological warfare also, and deterrence to Israel to try and do ISIS kind of executions and stuff like that. I cannot exclude that, because we are dealing with ISIS.
Ambassador Gilon, I have to be a devil's advocate as well. You know, I'll tell you very honestly that while I grew up in India, you know, I heard stories of Mossad. I heard stories of Shin Bet. I heard stories of the IDF. and their bravery, their courage, their valor, and their intelligence capabilities. It was almost like a Hollywood film, but the reality was that it was happening in reality. The Mossad was actually doing it in real, what we saw in films. But unfortunately, this event happens and there's a collapse. Why do you think that this kind of an intelligence failure happened? Because only yesterday we got reports that probably there were some communication barriers as well that were set up. Probably there were these secret meetings that were happening. Probably there was this, complete silence of the activities, and nobody on ground, perhaps in Gaza, at least till the middle rung, knew about what was going to happen. So why this intelligence failure, and how will intelligence agencies and security apparatus cope up with this?
Well, I agree. I think everyone agrees that there was a major failure there. Exactly 50 years after we had another failure in the 73 in the Yom Kippur War, we will have to look into it. But this is not the time for us to look into the failures. We know how to learn from the failures. We say about Israel that we are very good in preparing to the previous wars. So, it's sometimes you become too comfortable and not alert enough, but I think it will go into the details. Now we are regrouping, we have regrouped already. We turn the pain into anger and to action. And I think this is the important, that's the strength of Israel, the ability to regroup and to learn from the mistakes. And we will learn from the mistakes. But I will tell you, if you speak of Mossad and previous strategies, I do believe that the rule that was set in 1972 after Munich, that no one that is connected to the planning or execution of that will come out clean. I think that we have to persecute them wherever they are, regardless of anything. I mean, it's totally unacceptable that they will be hiding and living comfortably, the leaders of Hamas in different countries around the world, and get asylum. And I think that it's quite clear that we will have to eliminate this organization or its ability to execute again. Eliminate the organization, it's very hard because it's in the hearts of people sometimes, and ideology and religion and very deep. But its operational capability and its leadership, I think they have to be eliminated in a way that they cannot do that again.
We have had statements from Qatar and other states saying that they will be mediators. But do you think any kind of mediation is possible at a time? You yourself mentioned how the Hamas spokesperson came out on Al Jazeera and said that for every building attacked, for every airstrike, there will be a hostage that will be killed. And also what you mentioned in the last answer, this hypocrisy of the Hamas leadership actually staying in Qatar, in Doha, traveling in private jets, enjoying life in villas, in farmhouses, and they have all the comforts and luxuries of life. But putting the local population, some of the innocent civilians, Muslims out there in Gaza as human shields, as casualties. We've seen this happening in Kashmir, in our part of the world as well. How do you deal with such a situation?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. It's not even that. You said part of it. They are living in these countries very comfortably. We, Israel, we understood the need to improve the life of the people in Gaza who are really living under the occupation of Hamas. Hamas took over by force from the Palestinian Authority after Israel withdrew totally from Gaza. And they are under occupation, and we try to help the population in the recent years despite terror and threats. We started opening for them opportunities to work in Israel and do some things to improve their lives. So we were trying to improve their lives, and we thought it's both their need and interest and our interest for security to beef up security, because if people are happy, the likelihood that they will support terrorism is smaller. So this is part of the cynicism of using these people, that Israel was trying to help them. Now it will stop. I don't see a situation where humanitarian, or thinking of after such an unhumanitarian act, that we will put a focus again on humanitarian. Because all this philosophy of let's make the life of the people in Gaza better collapsed on us. And this, it's a change of paradigm what's happening here. And I don't know where we are going. It's very hard to say, but it's a big thing.
You're saying that it's a paradigm shift. Of course, it's like a historical terror attack. You know, many are comparing it to 9/11. Some are saying that this is 5 to 10 times what happened in 26/11. And comparing the population of US and Israel, some are saying that perhaps this is twice or thrice bigger than 9/11. But sir, do you think that a ground assault in Gaza is inevitable now? Because, you know, there was an opportunity that was given by Israel in 2005. But continuously we've seen rocket attacks time to time happening from Gaza to Israel. And now this barbaric, brutal terror attack, massacre of innocent people. Do you think that apart from the airstrikes now, there will be a historical, geopolitical and geographical shift in the Middle East that Israel will ensure?
I don't know if there will be to your simple question about the ground attack. I don't know. I believe yes, because at the end of the day, our ability to pound from the air is there, but we are trying to get to specific people. We are trying to refrain from hitting unrelated population, and that you can do to a certain level from the air, but not 100%. And on the ground, you have better ability to get to people and do that. So I think this is on that part of on the ground. Yeah, there is I think a shift. You know, people ask a lot about what will Saudi Arabia do now with all the approachment of Saudi Arabia closer, the whole ideas of creating a way from India through the Gulf and Saudi Arabia to the Mediterranean, to Israel and Mediterranean, and all that. I believe, I know, that these extremists, fundamentalists, jihadists, these are the enemies of the moderate regimes. So they are the enemies of the Egyptians, of the Saudis, of the Gulf countries, because they threaten them. In every place you have a different name to the group, but the ideology is the same. So what Israel is doing here, in a way, is serving the moderate forces in the Middle East, in West Asia. And I don't know if it will make a shift. I think that if you look at the situation where Israel was unprovokedly attacked and is now going to take care of the source of the threat, it should strengthen our relations with these countries. I saw UAE in a very strong statement in the UN, and also their spokesperson and others also. I think they understand the point. Again, there is public opinion, there are issues, and once we start fighting on the ground, it will be harder to explain to people who are, emotional about it in the region. But in general, I think we are serving the stability of the region, eliminating the people who are trying to destabilize the region. The head of the snake from our point of view is Iran. There is no doubt about it. Iran has many proxies and messengers and different connections with terror organizations, with the Houthis in Yemen, with ISIS in Sinai, who was bordering. In Bahrain, they were trying to destabilize. With Hamas, with Hezbollah, of course, in Lebanon, they are much involved. In Iraq and in Syria, wherever you see instability, the Iranians are there. So I don't know, we are now dealing with the immediate threat, but if the world is looking to the real problem in our region, I have no doubt that it is Iran.
You know, Ambassador, some time ago, the Abraham Accords happened, and there was a historic joy among these countries and the world that there's a huge shift that is happening. And now we were increasingly talking about the normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi. Do you think that has already taken a hit, and perhaps this event unfortunately has taken us 20 years back?
So first of all, I do believe that it was a huge shift in the Middle East when the Abraham Accord happened, because for the first time, countries did not put the Palestinian issue as a precondition. By the way, what India did quite a few years before in the dehyphenation philosophy, saying we will deal, for example, in our case, we will deal with Israel and with the Palestinians separately. None is the condition to the other. And this is what really these countries said after many years, that the Palestinian interest was put in front of the interest of their own populations. They said, no, I do a separation. It's not that I stop supporting the Palestinians, But my interest is to have maybe also the region, to have good relations with Israel. And I think this is a strong decision which brings already fruits to the Middle East. Eye to you, two different ideas of projects together, people to people. It brings fruit and it's good. So as I said before, I believe that Hamas kind of jihadi organizations with different names around, ISIS-like organizations, they are the enemies of this process of stability and creating more globalization of the region, more cooperation, routes from India to the Mediterranean, all that. We are taking care of the problem of the good countries, of the moderate countries in the Middle East. So I don't know, maybe in public opinion now there will be a delay or something, the need to delay, but I think that the long-term interest proved already itself and will prove in the future as the necessity of the countries, the moderate countries, to get together. I separate two kinds of leaderships in general in the world, in my eyes. One leadership are the people who their first concern is the well-being of their populations. India, Western countries, Israel. What we care is how do we make the lives of our safer, better economy, better things. And there are others who are looking outside. How can I destabilize? How can I create problems? You know, the well-being of their population is not in the first place. And we, the like-minded, the ones who want to, that's the power of the world. I think these are the good people of the world, good countries, good leaderships that have to unite together.
Ambassador, there's been considerable support that has come in from the US President. At least 2 to 3 statements have come in. There's a joint statement that has also come in. Biden personally has made a very emotional support to Israel. He has, of course, spoken to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as well. As of now, they have pledged military support and aid to Israel. Apart from that, aircraft carrier strike group has been also sent near Israel waterways. What kind of support does Israel expect from United States? And if there is a full-scale war or a possibility, unfortunately, of a two-front war, do you expect the US to actually join the war?
You know, one of the principles of the strength of Israel is that we never asked anyone to come and fight our wars. It was never a wish. Also, it shows weakness. If you depend on outside assistance, even in the dire situation of the Yom Kippur War in 1973, Israel regathered and won the war. I mean, physically, we were already both on the way to Damascus and the way to Cairo, the two capitals that attacked us. So we reconquered the area, the territories, and advanced to their territories. And the price was big, but we knew that you have to tell everyone, we will protect ourselves with our own blood. Don't spill blood on us. So in this sense, I think that we can deal with Hezbollah and Hamas at the same time. We are very appreciative of the Americans to put deterrence there in order to prevent this from happening, because we are not looking for unnecessary wars. We have now a war that was declared on us and declared back by us with Hamas. This is one situation. If Hezbollah wants to come in, we will be able to handle two fronts if we need. It's not easy, not simple. But since, you know, what is the strength of Israel? That it's, you know, we had the Holocaust. A third of the Jewish people died in Europe in the 1940s, 40s mostly. We don't have an alternative. So, you know, in Israel, we know, you know, some know how to swim, but Cyprus, the first democracy in our region, is too far away to swim. So the only possibility to stand tall and fight. And that's what we do. The Americans are helping us a lot. They're helping us with rearming, you know, because we are using a lot of ammunition and stuff like that. So this is very important to us. They give us a political backing. But I don't want them to fight for me. I don't think that we need it. And maybe it's a good opportunity also to say something about India and the support we get from India.
I actually wanted to ask that question because, you know, of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has tweeted twice. There's a phone call that he received from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But I remember from my first visit to Israel, you know, I was standing outside the Prime Minister's office. And Ambassador Regev, who was the advisor, actually came to meet me for an interview. And one thing that he told me has remained with me always. He said that, Aditya, just like the Hindus in India have been, victims of the Islamist terror for years and decades together, we Jews have been also subjected to same amount of human rights violations, atrocities, and unfortunately the world has remained silent. And he made this comparison, which is true. We've seen that. Indian Prime Minister has been unequivocally condemning terrorism. He has said that we support Israel. What kind of communication is happening between India and Israel right now? And how would you comment on Prime Minister's statement?
So I think that it's amazing, nothing short of amazing, the support we get here. Starting with the Prime Minister, but going down to, continuing to all levels here. I had ministers off the record calling me because it's not part of the, of the protocol, calling me or sending me text messages, big industrialists, high-level bureaucrats, ordinary people. So we get a huge amount. I've been a diplomat, and this is I think my 6th country that I'm serving in, and the amount of support, of friendship that we get here is really amazing. Never saw social media is, the number of people who write to me, we stand with Israel, I love Israel, I want to come and serve you in the war, to help you in the war. It's an amazing.
Is that actually true, that Indians actually have asked you that we want to volunteer?
First of all, many indirect messages, but many on the, if you look at follow my Twitter, and people write it to me, I want to volunteer, I want to fight with Israel. Really amazing. Yesterday, I think in Toronto it was, that there was an Indian Jewish event together in support, against terrorism in support of Israel. So it's really amazing the support that we get from Indians and from Prime Minister Modi, who his first tweet was around, if I remember well, Saturday. It started 6:30 Israel time, meaning that here it was around 9 o'clock, and I think in the afternoon already, like 4 o'clock or something like that, was already his tweet. So Indian time. So it was really fast. At that time, we were speaking of tens of dead. We didn't know that we have 1,200, and the stories of ISIS atrocities and terrible things, it wasn't even there. So even in the initial element of the attack, and I think that, it's amazing. It's amazing to see the friendship. I do agree that we are very similar in these things of being always, attacked, having to protect ourselves. It's something that is beyond explanation. I think it's very emotional. The power of our relations, and it's funny because India is 150 times bigger than Israel. Israel is less than 10 million population. The Jews in Israel are 7 million and something people. So but yet the bonds here are something that it's beyond explanation. I think it's very emotional element there that, there was a Pew Research comparative research. I saw it I think a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and they compared like 20, 30 countries, what are the attitudes towards India. And the attitudes in Israel were by far the highest, by far. I mean, it was like 71% with a positive attitude. Other countries, the maximum that they reached was very close to 50. And this is amazing. And I know that also on the other side, it's like that. And why is it like that? We can explain many things, but I think it's something that is much deeper. Each one has his own feelings, that not everything is explainable in life. So yeah, now you're going into the question why. If you speak to Indians and to the Israelis, but you hear so many reasons why. People will tell you because Jews have been living here, one of the only place, or the only place in the world without any anti-Semitism, or for 2,000 persecution of 2,500 years. And then others will speak about the combat in Haifa, that 30 years before Israel was established, Indians were part of the conquer of Haifa and Israel in general from the Ottomans. And others will say that the Jews who lived here then came to Israel at the bridge. And others will say that many Indians feel like Israelis, that they are surrounded by enemies, and they appreciate the fact that Israel is a very small country, very tough, and knows how to protect itself. So each one has his own narrative. And part of the narratives is also the fact that, as you said, for the last maybe 30 years, big numbers of Israelis after military service come here. They go to where we call the hummus trail. Why hummus? Because they opened restaurants there that sell hummus and falafel and Israeli food for them, to serve them, some by Indians, some by Israelis who stayed here, and different, very funny stories. But now we have already the second generation, so the parents are bringing their children, and this is not regular five-star hotel tourists. They are backpackers, they come here for 6 months, 9 months, they live like Indians, they go to do yoga and they shanti and whatever. They want to live here the full potential of the Indian culture. So these people come back to Israel, they are already, in a way, ambassadors of the Indian culture. They come back again and again. So this is another, I think that's part of the explanation why in Israel, one of the reasons there is so much sympathy towards India. And I think another thing that is very much in common between our cultures is the value of the family, the centrality of the family in the lives, and also the centrality of the food in the family. Yeah. So we are both like that. I mean, every family gathering in both our countries or every wedding is around food. All the rest is nice, but food has to be there in big quantity, good quality.
I've experienced that in Israel, no doubt. But one final question before I let you go, sir. You yourself touched upon this, that there's a lot of narrative war that happens. Now that Israel has decided, and I want you to answer that, is your final objective now not just a response, but elimination of Hamas from Gaza? And secondly, whether or not that ground assault happens or whatever happens, there will be a huge campaign, not just in America and the West and the European Union and the UN, but on social media about humanitarian crisis, about Israel's so-called war crimes, etc. How do you deal with that now? Because nobody, perhaps in the few weeks, because memory is short, they will forget the terror attack and they will start attacking Israel left, right and center. How do you plan to deal with that?
Yeah, I will tell you the way that they think that they're sophisticated now. When people don't want to speak about the atrocities that were done to Israelis, they start trying to create a context. So as if there is a context to killing of population, meaning there is a justification. What is the context? They say, yeah, it happened, but you have to look what they did or what happened or what is the history, and all of that is justifying terrorism, because I believe that terror is terror is terror. There is no justification in the world for ISIS-like butchering of people, decapitating, killing children, kidnapping. It's war crimes, it's crimes against humanity, it's utterly disgusting. And the idea that you put it in a context, so you have to understand what brought them. Nothing brought anyone to kill children in their beds. There is no justification whatsoever. And this is part of the problem. We know already, look, Israel is one country, very small in the world. We are always the biased against us in the UN. We know that in the past there were 50 Muslim countries more or less in the world, that it was automatically with the Arab side. Today we have already, it's a little bit more complex, but still there is an automatic majority against us in the UN. No one in the UN, no one in the international community can stop Israel from making sure that Hamas is not going to have this ability to attack Israel again. So you asked me about eliminating, I don't think that eliminating is possible. I said before, sometimes it's a religious belief of people, sometimes it's something else. It's inside the people. When people are crazy, they're crazy. There is nothing you can do. But you can eliminate their ability to execute serious attacks. So here and there you will always have attacks. Lone wolf style of things. But this magnitude or this ability to shoot at Israel any now and then and to penetrate and kill 1,200 civilians, most of them, that we have to eliminate. How it will be done tactically, it remains to be seen how the military decides and the government decides to go at it.
Well, Ambassador Gilon, it's always a pleasure, but here's praying for all the innocents who lost their lives, and more power to Israel to defend themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you.